right, let's go.
Yep. Well, good morning, everybody. I think let's go ahead and get started. We have several things we want to chat about, mostly as we work to get closer to putting a bow on this, at least this current version of the updated state water plan. And so if you saw the welcome, I think it was just kind of more of a generic agenda there. There's some specifics we need to get into, but hopefully most of you have had an opportunity to look over kind of the format and at least your sections of the draft report that we can get into. There's a few things that Wes and Tara want us to go over this morning. We'll want to talk about our schedule and the upcoming public meetings, and then kind of where we go from there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wes. Thank you.
Well, I'll give everybody good news is I think this meeting may be a little shorter than others in the past. Tara is unfortunately out today. She won't be able to make the meeting, but she did relay to me that she is continuing to compile the edits that she's receiving from everybody, and she's working to essentially develop another version to provide for the NGOs and some of the other stakeholders that provided feedback early in the other public outreach #1 and public outreach #2. So the goal is to get that out to those individuals or those stakeholders today and let them take a look at the report, essentially a little preemptive public outreach to make sure that we've kind of addressed some of the things they've wanted to address and maybe kind of maybe have a little bit cleaner draft as we move into that final public outreach. We are asking for all their comments to be back by the end of July, and that will kind of get us into a further dot point or item #3, which will set us up for our public meetings that we're looking for in August, and we'll discuss that a little bit more here shortly. I guess the premise for the task force or the focus will be if you haven't gotten reviews done, make sure you go ahead and do those. Those can be done during the month of July if you have not done them. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look through the full report. You should have revised the formatting to be consistent as what we discussed last time as Tara sent out. Again, we're kind of coming to the home stretch here and trying to get ready for this final public outreach with a near final draft or our last draft of this report for the public outreach. So it's important that we get the report as in good shape as we can so that we can make the best use of this public outreach coming up. So I guess I'll pause a moment and see if anybody has any questions about the review of the combined report, or is there any questions or comments regarding kind of wrapping up edits to that report?
Well, this is Lauren. I'll start with more of a comment. And of course, you know, the state water plan is a dynamic plan, you know, ever changing and will continue to be dynamic as we work to implement what we've laid out and go forward. Kind of with that mindset, and I haven't even gotten with the leads here for recreation yet, but some of you may know that we had a Supreme Court ruling that came out here a couple weeks ago related to public waters. Basically, the state Supreme Court affirmed that private ownership of private waters is private ownership of private waters. And so what that means is you can't just canoe on any stream in the state unless it is a, you know, public water or designated public, like from a forest reserve or park or something. That's created, obviously, consternation in the recreation world for those who want to be able to kayak and canoe. And so the department is looking to maybe implement a program to help well, to help offer a way to try and get easements from private owners to give them something in exchange for having public canoe or kayak across their property. And so the request was made from the director's office level to introduce that kind of a concept in the state water plan. So we'll be working up another paragraph or something and getting with the recreation team, but I think we'll want to introduce that concept in the recreation. So kind of a last minute add into the plan from that perspective.
Hey, Lauren, this is Laura. I don't want to sidetrack things, but my understanding, because I used to canoe, was that it was the land, the channel and stuff that was under the water that was landowners, but as long as you stayed in your canoe and on the water, that's changed then, huh?
Yeah, well, it's not really changed, but that is, thanks, Laura, that is the basic common misconception in Illinois, because that is true in Wisconsin, I think in Missouri, maybe even in Iowa and Indiana as well, but not in Illinois. Basically, the private property owner owns that water, if you will, as it passes from property line to property line. And so you are trespassing if you are not on a public water or do not have permission to be there. So that's the idea. That's why it's created so much angst, is that, you know, those trying to tube or canoe on the DuPage, or, you know, there's plenty of very nice canoeable streams in Illinois that are fully private. And so that's basically, you're trespassing and don't have a right to be there even if you remain in your canoe. And so that's where the department, while I don't see us changing the law, because it goes back to basically the fact that our very first General Assembly after we became a state chose to make the state that way, versus the very first General Assembly of the state of Wisconsin chose to make waters public a different way. So it would go clear back to probably end up at the U.S. Supreme Court if we tried to change that today. So rather than trying to change that law, although like the Illinois Environmental Council, we believe that they are probably going to put forth an effort to maybe make some sort of an attempt at that change legislatively. We're coming at it from a different way. Well, we're an agency that promotes that kind of recreation, so how can we create a program to help incentivize those parties or those entities that want to create a canoeable, kayakable reach to be able to offer that private property owner something in exchange for the right to allow the public across their property.
How does this affect something like the Illinois River, which is, you know, navigation?
Well, the designated public waters, the navigable waters like the Illinois River, that's
Okay.
a public water, so you have a right to be there.
Yeah, and Laura, what you had described is kind of the rules of designated public waters, where the ground underneath is owned by a riparian landowner, but the water itself is available for the public. That's only the case for the designated public waters in Illinois. That's not the case for, you know, the upper Sangamon around Champaign or some of the smaller rivers that are not public.
Yeah, like the Des Plaines River stops being public at where the old Hoffman Dam used to be in Riverside.
Okay.
But yet
Well,
there's lots of
interesting is not going to describe what's going to happen next.
Yes, but they, again, and so here's an opportunity where at least the Illinois DNR wants to use the state water plan as that vehicle to introduce a concept, a recommendation for how we create new programs to try and facilitate private use of public use of private waters.
So, yeah, how does that affect like somebody damming up a stream to create their own pool and stuff? This is probably another conversation, but yeah, it can really snowball here. So, thank you.
Yeah, no, like I said, I believe the Illinois Environmental Council and others may be trying to take actions themselves on that matter.
Okay, comments regarding the review of the combined report?
So Wes, I guess I'd have to ask Tara, but generally I know we were trying to put it into a format where we were describing the issues, because I know in my section before I changed it, I had just gone straight to here's what integrated water management is and here's our recommendations. And so I had to do a little bit of rewrite in my own section to kind of have here's why we're making these recommendations, a little bit of explanation for each of the issues. Are we getting that from the other chapters?
I think Tara has been getting those in. She will be reaching out to the topic leads in the next couple of days if she needs anything further from any specific section. So if you see that come in from Tara, know that we're moving forward with whatever we have from you all. So the better the shape that is in, the better it looks for the public. So if you can, try and make that a priority during the month of July. Like I said, this is already going out to some of our stakeholders in the next couple of days, and it kind of is what it is, and we sent out what we had. But we definitely want to make sure we get this in the best shape as possible before our official public outreach effort in August.
Wes, another question. We may have talked about this and I've forgotten. So we had talked about trying to get basically letters of support or encouragement from each of the member agency heads, right? And so I was going to draft a sample kind of letter or recommendation that I could get out to all the leads or to each agency so that, each agency could kind of tweak a letter, how they would maybe want it and get it into their director's office for consideration. Were we going to put those in the report, or just would I put those with my transmittal letter for the plan?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm trying to recall, I guess back then, I thought, and I could be wrong in my recollection, is that we are going to have one letter and all the agencies sign that single letter. That's how my memory is recalling it. I could go back and double check that. I don't think we need it for the public outreach. No. But I thought it was going to be kind of more on that letter, or it is that letter that we were kind of issuing with the report. So I don't know if it was directly in the report. Again, I'd have to go back to our minutes to confirm that. That's things that we can, kind of wrap up and solidify after our public outreach.
I think if we do the one letter makes sense now that you're remembering that if the task force agrees, and maybe that does go in part of the intro or the beginning, because it tells those who read it that it is a unified, that all agencies are bought into this plan. So.
Yeah, so essentially we'd be looking at having each of these agencies, and for the various ID&R offices, I don't know if we just have
one for
the one, but we would be looking for each of those other agencies to sign off, if at all possible. I know we have a couple that aren't as active or aren't overseeing a topic, but hopefully we can get those agencies on board since they are officially part of the task force as it was defined back in 1980. Okay?
Yep.
Anything else on the review combined report? Hearing none, we'll move on to the upcoming public meeting. So as I mentioned, we're wanting to get some additional stakeholder feedback to kind of get the report in a little bit better shape. We'll get comments back by them. We're asking for them by July 31st. Do some scheduling conflicts. It looks like the earliest we would probably be able to do a public outreach would be the 3rd and 4th week of August. We're looking at holding 3 in-person, well, hybrid, in-person and online events. One in Bartlett at the OWR IDNR office in Bartlett. There's a nice auditorium there. Probably here at IDNR. And then a third one in Southern Illinois with a location to be determined specifically.
Hey, BJ, does the district down there have a nice meeting facility in Carbondale?
You know what? I've not been down there, so I could find out. But yeah, I don't know. I know Collinsville has a meeting room, but we've had some public outreach there, but not. I have not been down to Carbondale. I will check on that.
Okay.
It would be great. So I guess, Lauren, I don't know if we'd want to try and set those dates right now regarding what days we would actually want to hold the public outreach. I think we would ask anybody who's available to come in person if possible, but also to maybe make themselves available virtually if they're not able to travel. Does anybody know of any major conflicts occurring either that 3rd or 4th week of August? And let me see, I'll see if I can pull up a calendar here. So I think we're talking about the week of the 15th and the 22nd is the 2 weeks we're looking at. And maybe would it just be better to put out a poll and
I think so.
like a when to meet and show when everybody's available for those 2 weeks?
Yep. And we just, yeah, pick the one where we've got the most availability, I guess. Those dates.
Does anybody know of any conferences or anything drastic that may take a number of us away, or water industry folks that would conflict with either of those 2 weeks? I'm not aware of, AWWA and a lot of other ones have their conferences other times a year, but I just want to make sure there's not another one I'm not aware of or any other major conflict those 2 weeks.
I don't see any, although I have a major NSF project meeting the 17th and 18th. And then the following week, I'm going to be gone a couple days, but I'll include that in the doodle poll. But as far as
okay.
meetings, I don't know of anything.
Okay.
And I don't know how many it affects, but the state fair is the week of is that the week of the 15th?
Yeah.
We should know that. That's in our backyard.
I'll double check.
I know think I'm working on the Friday the 18th. That's the only reason I said that.
I don't think I have it on my calendar here. Let's see here.
It's only on a big sign that I pass every morning as I come into the office, right?
Usually I have it in my calendar, but I'm not sure. Nope, I haven't put it in my calendar yet.
The fair ends on the 21st of August.
Okay.
All
It
right.
goes from the 11th to the 21st.
Excellent. Thank you. So it is that first week that we're talking about. So probably not a good week to have it in Springfield.
Right. Might have to be that.
The second week we'll have to have it in Springfield because we don't want people to have. It's a good way to keep the comments
That's right.
down.
That's right. If you want to come, you have to pay to get into the
Pay
fair.
$10 to get there or whatever. Oh. Okay.
Well, or you could have a booth at the fair and
There you go. Yeah, let's just send out those
2 weeks.
those 2 weeks, maybe even into the 3rd, that last week.
So just send it all the way out to the
Yeah.
2nd
Yeah.
of September. Okay, I'll send out that 3 weeks as a when to meet. Just show your availability and maybe try and get that back to me. I'll send that out today and try and get back maybe by the end of this week or sooner. so that we can get that locked in for everybody.
Yeah.
So again, we'll just ask to try and make yourself available. I don't know if we'll have one evening or a day versus evening. I think the public outreach meetings we did before, we kind of had
Late afternoon.
Yeah, we had a morning, afternoon, and an evening for the 3 virtual meetings we had. I don't know if we want to do something like that. Does anybody have any thoughts or recommendations about time of day or day of the, you know, I hate to say day of the week because that'll be based on our availability. I would lean that Chicago would probably be during the workday, maybe best. I don't know.
We have to kind of look at how when the last one that we just did, the second outreach,
Yeah.
times that we did those.
I can pull it up here, I think.
Well, you're doing that, I was gonna say, I can tell you from our public outreach that we do get better attendance after the work hour, just because people are working but whatever's most convenient for everybody.
Yeah, so we did a 6 p.m., a 2 p.m., and a 10 a.m. on our last outreach.
Oh yeah, 6, 2, and 10.
Yeah.
But those were also virtual though. So if we are in person, I don't know if we get better, like BJ's saying, better attendance if we're after work in the evening.
Does anybody have any comments or concerns regarding time of day?
You know, just a comment would be that if we're doing Northern Illinois or Southern Illinois, we're traveling anyway, right? So the evening doesn't necessarily, if we're staying over, whether we're doing it at 2 p.m. in the afternoon probably, or
6, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will send out the when to meet, and I will include evening hours, probably till 8 p.m. I assume we'd do a 6 p.m. meeting. BJ, is that when you guys did? What time did you guys do your evening outreach?
Yeah, it was like 5:30 to 7 or something like that. So
Okay.
it was
So maybe I'll just show it till 8 o'clock. I know some people have evening obligations. So we'll try and also keep that into consideration. Okay, any other comments or thoughts? Lauren, is there anything else we need to discuss about the public outreach? I guess I'll talk in general about the format we were considering and see if everybody else is on board. The first 2 public outreaches, we really tried to do a deeper dive into the topics themselves. The first one was defining the issues. The second one was, laying out the recommendations we had proposed. So this third public outreach, we really see it more to share the general format of the report. Here's what it is, here's where to find things, but we weren't going to go in and give what all 150 recommendations are in the report or anything like that, like we did in the second. That's kind of what the second public outreach was, but more kind of just getting an overview of this is the report, this is where to find things, and
here's
then,
where we're headed, after.
There's where we're heading after, and then we may have a general Q&A about the report following that kind of overview presentation. And then I think we'd kind of open it up to more of an open house for those who are present, or if there's maybe somebody also kind of manning the virtual meeting to answer questions there that may be more specific. So that was our kind of thought of the agenda for the evening: a general presentation on the report itself and its structure, a Q&A to that effect, and then kind of more of an open house for any of those who are in attendance, or somebody can maybe answer online if you're virtual, kind of in the comments section of the virtual meeting. So I guess I'll open it if anybody has any suggestions or recommendations, or if that sounds good, if we should do it another way. Again, this is a task force meeting, not just mine, so I welcome other thoughts. If you're good with it, you can just say you're good with it as well, or.
I'm good with it.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, you know, and that it really, as we'll share in the outreach too, that in the integrated management section, you know, it really talks about formalizing more of the task force, trying to get us resources and perhaps a budget and funding for that for each of the agencies. And so that, again, we use this particular update to share with elected officials, but it really becomes that springboard for the work that the task force would do as a task force as we focus on particular you know, recommendations that we want to implement first, second, third, whatever. So, you know, we'll hit on that at the open house, but that's really kind of where we're headed, is then we have to get at what we've got to do there. So, I think the report is what it is when we publish it, and then the way we go.
This is Chris. It's listed as an open house, but it almost sounds more like a presentation type meeting. Is there, and I'm sorry because I was trying to listen, but I do get distracted easily. Is there anything that's making it seem more like an open house than presentation alone?
So I think it was going to be in two parts. The first portion was going to be kind of an overview presentation, much more like a formal presentation. But the second half was going to be kind of an open house where those that are available online or in person could address questions or talk one-on-one with individuals regarding any comments or
committees
questions.
And actions.
Okay, I've just seen some local citizen type input meetings where we've had some good success with having some things on either poster board or on the wall, if we've got the right location to do it, where people could actually come up and either put their happy face sticky notes or thumbs up, thumbs down or something. So they've got a couple of different ways that they can relay information without necessarily having to talk, if, say, they're an introvert or something. Or if they're an introvert, chances are they aren't at the meeting.
So I guess the way to do that, if we'd want to explore that, is to have the recommendations for each section posted
kind of foam board or something.
Room.
Yeah. And then post-it notes, you could put comments on the recommendations or something right on the foam board.
Yeah, I know that we could go ahead and do printouts at like 2 foot by 3 foot size if we've got like PDFs of the tables of the recommendations. If we want to do something like that, I'd offer up our plotter to help do that.
That makes sense. I think we'll take you up on your offer, Chris, or we'll see what we have here too.
Okay. We can talk more about it. And yeah, to me, it just seems like it's a nice opportunity if I was walking up to talk to somebody about something specific and I've got something behind me that could point out, hey, this is the thing that I was having a question about. So.
Yeah.
Chris, would you recommend that we just do that with the recommendations, or what information do you think should be on those boards?
The recommendations for sure. It might also be a good thing to have what the mission of the plan is supposed to be getting at, because I think we're covering so much stuff that helping people remember what it is that they're trying to ask for or why they're trying to ask for it might help with the communication on it as well.
Okay. So, Chris, Lauren, do you want to coordinate with Chris on that, or do you want me to follow up on getting those created, or we can have Tara send over the latest recommendations?
Yeah, let's just have Tara coordinate with Chris.
Oh, good. Send the mean lady after me. Thank you.
Know that that's always me. I'm making Tara out to be the bad person, whatever.
I was wondering too, maybe, one thing we might, there's been a lot of recommendations towards creating, centers or portals of information and things like that, which I think the public might be really interested in. I'm wondering if those could be highlighted as something to I don't know, to garner support from the public, or maybe just highlighting those. I'm not sure. I mean, they are a recommendation, but they are, I guess, something that, could be useful to the public.
Yeah, I think, for the public outreach, those that really, some of those really public things might be good to highlight if we hit on. I was resisting the urge to only highlight the integrated water management stuff.
Yeah, we probably don't need to do that, but just, that maybe, listing the recommendations, but then bolding or underlining ones that people might be interested in, and then, they could ask somebody there what it would be about or something. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess where I was going is the integrated water information center, right, that we're trying to put together. And I know that State Water Survey, PRI, are pushing on that kind of on their own side, but that's like a public library, right? And so that's kind of a new opportunity for information where the public and other interested entities can get water-related information on many fronts.
Yeah, we have to give it a little thought of how to present something like that.
Yeah. Well, and truthfully, I think Kevin O'Brien and Glenn have already been giving that a fair amount of thought. And so maybe we just kind of build off of what they're already putting together to present legislatively and some of that. So we'll try to make that kind of tied together.
Yeah, I can let them know that we're thinking about that, and we can huddle and come up with
Yeah, if
something.
you see them, I did look over what Glenn sent me on that, and I had no red flags. So.
Okay, any other comments on the upcoming public meeting or suggestions, recommendations? Not hearing any, I guess we will go back or go on to number 4 of review of the schedule. So I'll just pull up the task force website here, if it allows me to. There we go. So I'm having this fixed. Our web designer forgot to remove that line, so just ignore that July 22nd line. Of course, today we have a State Water Plan Task Force. We're getting those final comments due July 31st is when those comments are due, and that's when we'd really like to get all the comments in from everybody. So if you haven't had a chance to review the report, please try and do so by the end of July so that we can get kind of a final version compiled that first half of August so that we're prepared to share that for the final public outreach that 3rd, 4th, and 5th week of August. So I think unlike previous public outreaches, we have typically had the topic leads prepare a slide or two. I don't think we actually need to do that in this regard. I forgot to mention that when we were talking about the public outreach. I think we'll just be preparing that based on the general information. Maybe we'll have all the recommendations, you know, on a couple of slides or something in case somebody has a question later on, so they can see it virtually. And then we'll also have those 2-foot by 3-foot boards, as Chris mentioned as well. So we'll have that occur in August, and then open it up for final public comments in September, probably near the end of September, so they have a full 4 weeks or so to provide comments. We'll probably be looking to have another task force. That's something I guess we can discuss further. Right now we had tentatively said September, and then we would essentially take those comments, address them, and move to publish the report this fall. So that's where we're at now. Does anybody have any questions or concerns with that timeline we have laid out?
I guess I would just add in, you know, really an October time period works well, as, you know, where many agencies are working on the following fiscal year budgets and requests about that time of the year. So it times well for what would be FY24 kind of requests at that point. And then also legislatively, obviously there's, you know, veto session in there. We're probably not going to get much in the veto session, but really prepping, then the agencies could prep for the spring legislative session if we're, you know, trying to move on any particular legislative matter. So I think that time of the year plays well for putting the report out there and putting a spotlight on it.
Any comments? Otherwise, let me know if this schedule looks good, just so I know that you guys are in agreement, or if you have comments.
Sounds good.
All right. Enough for me. All right, going back then, I guess the final item is kind of next steps, and we kind of wrap that up with future meeting date as well. So just kind of looking back at the schedule and knowing that we're going to be in that public comment period, I guess the question is, when do we need to have our next meeting? Do we want to wait till final comments are in and those have been shared with the group? Or do you think it'd be beneficial while we're waiting for those comments to come in to kind of start having discussion about some of those final pieces, like the support letter and other things?
Excuse me. Yeah, I guess my input would be that we look towards the middle to the latter part of September. You know, would we still get a comment or two in that last week or two, maybe? But I think we'll have most of the comments in that we're going to get, and can then focus on those other specifics we need to talk about.
So I know Monday mornings have typically worked pretty well for us. Lauren, did you have what we have? We have Labor Day on the 5th.
I'm looking at like the 19th, maybe.
The 19th? So I guess if you guys don't mind checking calendars and seeing if it looks like the 19th works out for everyone. If you could just let us know a yes or a no, that would be wonderful, just to see if we all have at least the majority of the group available. I'll pull up my Outlook calendar here right quick.
Yes, if it's in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the plan.
Hey, Wes, what, are you talking about August 19th? What?
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
September.
September
Okay,
19th.
September, okay. So, well, I was, somebody came in my office and I was distracted for a minute, so I thought.
Works for me.
So yeah, we'd probably be looking at 9 to 11 once again on that week of September 19th.
So BJ, you must have missed the discussion then when we talked about you hosting and providing food and.
I can always provide food. I'm pretty good cook. There's a lot of things I can't provide, but I could do that one. But yeah, the 19th is fine with me.
All right, we will go ahead and set the next date for September 19th. And we will kindly ask Megan to send out a meeting request for that date. And we'll do from 9 to 11 a.m. on Monday, September 19th.
Hey, Wes, what's wrong with your calendar? It's empty.
Yeah.
It's because Lauren hasn't had a chance to fill it yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hey,
I was getting jealous.
Yeah, I do have an odd question. Well, maybe not an odd question, but it is relevant to the work plan. What happens to the recommendations that are orphans, where we've got one agency recommending another agency to take it on, and that agency referring it back to the other one? I think there's a couple of those out there, maybe. How are we handling those?
If you're listed as the lead agency, or if you're recommending someone else be the lead agency and you're the topic lead, I would hope there'd be some coordination occurring between those two to make sure everybody's on board. That's kind of the part that, or one of the efforts that should be undergone while we're in this editing section in July, is coordination between topic leads and I guess what I would call a recommendation lead.
Okay.
To make sure that everybody's on board with that. And I think if we can't come to an agreement on that, it would have to be removed.
Okay. And who, when we get to that point, if it is something that needs to be removed or drastically modified, is that going to Tara, or who are we notifying that we're potentially losing that recommendation?
I would, whoever the topic lead, you want?
No, I would just say, yeah, obviously those involved in that issue, and send it to the chair, and I would copy, Wes and Tara on it.
Yeah, so Tara would need to know, because she's putting together I'm forgetting, the collaborative, the multidisciplinary, I forget what the term now. This is the downside of doing things on Monday morning. So yeah, she's doing the where there's overlap between recommendations, so we need to know if something goes out there. The cross-cutting, thank you. And she's doing a lot of the summer, so she'll need to know. It probably wouldn't hurt to just copy Lauren and I, and then whoever that section lead is, or that topic lead, and then whoever the recommendation lead, just so that everybody knows what's going on.
Okay. We've done a cursory review of the items that were identified with Illinois EPA as the lead with our director's office staff. And even though we've been pointing out to them that the things are recommendations and are a hope list, they're having some heartburn with our name showing up on the lead on a couple of things. So we'll keep working on it from there, but it's just, they just are not seeing it from the wish list perspective. They're looking at it as hey, and from 5 years from now, we're going to be held responsible for accomplishing all of this.
Yeah. Like I said, I think we're looking at probably a 10-year time frame window for accomplishing these, particularly when you consider that it takes 2 years to minimum to
Yeah.
go through the development of this report.
I think the report says a 7 or 8 year.
I've changed it, you just
Okay.
didn't know.
Okay.
Well,
You'll be retired by then
That's
anyways,
right.
Lauren.
That's right.
yeah. Well, and to be blunt, I think we could give them 100 years and they would still have heartburn trying to commit staff to do things that we know we don't physically have staff. And we're moving into a smaller building, so they're telling us we can't hire anybody. So, yeah, we got this push me pull you thing going on here. So, but we'll get it figured out.
Yeah.
Well, and truthfully, that's really, we've spent such a focus and our time, effort, and resources on putting pen to paper and developing this plan that, once we put the bow on it for that snapshot of here's where we're at, then really the task force gets at the task of wrestling with what recommendations are we moving on or not moving on right now, or getting at first, second, or third kind of priorities. And that's when I think, Chris, those kinds of things will come into play with the task force and the agencies.
Okay, well,
Again,
fine,
these are only recommendations. I don't know, that, I don't know whether in the plan it's, some delicate way of saying, pending resources, or something like that, but,
It
Yeah.
says that pretty often, I think.
Yeah.
well, and I think what we run into is the majority of our agency programming is enforcement or continuation of implementation of a state or a federal act or law. And so the rose-colored glasses don't pick up on the furry, fuzzy, warm stuff that we're hoping to get into. They read things from a, hey, if this is written in a report, we have to do it kind of thing. So even if it says recommendation, they just look from a different angle.
Yeah. Well, and that's the power of it, though, too, right? To move on or to have a recommendation in there, that by the nature of the task force becomes accepted or supported by all of the water-related agencies. And so then as a particular agency goes to implement, and whether that requires funding, a budget item or a legislative item, being able to say, working towards implementing a recommendation, or as this was recommended in the state water plan, it gives that multi-agency support that may be required, as opposed to, well, hey, Chris Davis came up with this idea and wants to move on it, right? So.
Those are the only things that get funded. Come on now, Lauren.
I know. Well, that's why I mentioned your name and most of mine. So.
But, yeah, no, I hear where you guys are coming from. We struggle with this a little bit, where you've got the differences between the major funding sources of the agency and how things come to be. And the other side of it, and then I'll stop talking about it, is a lot of times when I'm going in and talking to my managers, the first thing out of their mouth is, what state or federal law requires this? And I'll be going, no, this is a voluntary program, or this is a such and such or such and such. So it's just the mindset of the agency being a little, we're all siblings, but we all come at things from a little bit of a different angle. So we'll figure it out.
And that is where the report, or the plan recommends really the formalization of the task force and funding behind the task force to help create that engagement or that requirement of all the agencies.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll have to go back and read more of the beginning of it and represent, because again, we were trying to do it on a pretty short schedule within the really, really long schedule that you guys provided us.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop talking now.
Yeah, and really, as I think I point out in the next steps General Assembly paragraph, we present the opportunity, but the key really lies with the General Assembly and what they appropriate and or, legislate and support. So all we can do is point out the issues and where we as professionals think we should go, but the key to really pulling the trigger on a lot of those lies with that entity.
So, kind of wrapping up here, next meeting will be September 19th. I have that we'll probably want to discuss the steps that we need to kind of push to a final release. So that will include like the support letter, things like that. I see us having a list of final things needed from the section leaders or the topic leaders. Is there anything else anyone else believes we need to include on the September agenda? And this could be the second to last or the last meeting before we release the report.
I think it's just that release coordination, right? Whether we do that through the legislative affairs sections of each agency or how, I think we'll want that to be a coordinated release and announcements. Even just a social media kind of thing, IDOT's, excited about, today's release of the updated state water plan, yada, yada kind of a thing.
Is this something that we want to try to coordinate with the Lieutenant Governor, with the Rivers of Illinois Coordinating Council at all? I know that they're at a point right now where they're requesting people to submit their own nominations to participate on the Coordinating Council.
I think it's certainly worth the question. If the Lieutenant Governor wants that.
I vote for Lauren to talk to the Lieutenant Governor.
I can make that happen. Yeah, the 1, 2, 3, not it. Dang it. Yes, I'll see that we can pose the question.
Very good. Well, I guess I'll just move if anybody has any final questions, comments, thoughts to share with the group. I have not. I'll stop sharing and see if there's any comments. I wasn't able to access the comment section. But if you have any comments or thoughts. It looks like we need a phone number for somebody ending in 92. And 72, just so that we can make note of who was in attendance.
The 92 is Gary Bingenheimer with Illinois EPA. It's 785-3492.
All right, thank you, Gary.
Yep.
And there's somebody on a line ending in 72. Maybe we're interrupting their nap. I don't know. All right. Well, it looks like 72 will remain a mystery. It's a 630 number. I'm not sure, so it's not Springfield. Anyway, okay. Any other comments? Otherwise, we will call it a meeting. Lauren?
No, thanks for all the work everybody's putting into getting us to the finish line for putting out the updated plan.
All right. Well, thank you all. Well, you should see a meeting invite for September 19th coming out shortly.
And the poll for the outreach.
Yep. And poll for the outreach. And Tara will be sending out a contact if we're still needing anything from any of the topic leads. So have a wonderful week.
Thank you, everybody.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
You.